Have you ever had a season where the doubt is so crushing all you could think about was walking away? We're sold this myth that the founder's journey is a straight line, but in reality, it is full of doubt, wrong turns, and massive pivots. But these pivots aren't actually failures, they're how we find our traction. I'm John Hill, aka Small Mountain, and today we're opening a time capsule. A couple of years ago, I interviewed Jon Selig, a sales consultant with a background in stand up, who helps founders and teams fix broken, jargon filled pitches. But this episode never aired. Why? Because I realized this show needed a pivot. And in the transition, we put this one in the vault. But here's the crazy part. While I was pivoting this show, Jon was pivoting his whole life. He stepped away from being a consultant, took a role back in sales, and then realized that wasn't his lane. He's better off out on his own, and came back out with a totally new approach and way of working with clients. Today, we're dropping a short, high impact version of that original conversation. Consider this part one, the before. Next week, Jon is coming back to talk about his return to founder life. Let's hop into it. Today's guest is Jon Selig. I want to make sure I say it right. My fault. And he is half sales guy, half stand up, whole complete parental, what's the word? How do you say that? Disappointment, excuse me. And he actually helps revenue teams come up with better messaging, helps understand their audience, and also helps bring some comedy to it, because that's where he comes from. And that's what we're going to be really diving into, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm really excited you're here.
I'm also excited to be here. Thank you for having me. We will also dive into how it's more about, like you said, understanding your buyers, but also why your buyers should care about the problems that you can solve for them and how you solve them and those impacts of not solving them. So it's kind of using the joke writing process to reverse engineer better insight around our prospects and why we matter to them. So figured I'd launch into things with that. But again, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So let's dive in, because I know that humor is something that lots of people try to use as in sales and in marketing and in messaging, and a lot of people miss the mark. Can you talk a little bit about how did you find your way to comedy? Was it something you were like always looking for? Did you kind of fall into it, or was it just like a way to kind of improve like a sales skill? How did it start?
It was a desire to run away from my sales job and find new paths in life, to be quite frank. I was selling enterprise technology for about 9 years or eight and a
Hmm.
half, maybe, when I started doing comedy. And I was just like, there's got to be more to life than talking to CIOs about their ETL and their ERP projects. It's really intellectually, it can actually be intellectually challenging. It's interesting. There's a money component. I was never the most money motivated guy. I sort of was like, I want to spend my days doing things that I'm good at, that I enjoy, and that will reward me. And I was all right at sales. I like to think I was decent at it. I was getting rewarded financially, but something inside of me was like, there's got to be more to life than this. And then I launched comedy writing for revenue teams back in 2017, when I was like, God damn it, the sales and stand-up comedy thing are more similar than people realize. I need to talk about that.
You treated your comedy path a little bit like a sales role, right? Can you talk a little bit more about like how that showed up for you? Was that just like being proactive and seeking it out versus like taking a reactive stance, or was it more tactical than that?
So I realized, like, well, everyone, when I'm doing an open mic, everyone's paying $5 for the ticket at the comedy club, like the Comedy Nest here in Montreal is where I started.
Mhm.
And everyone's paying the $5. They're probably here to support a friend. Or some people just come off the street because they want a cheap night of entertainment. But regardless, they've paid $5. They're investing some money in drinks. They want to laugh. They're not here to not laugh. So I realized that, like, okay, if I'm sitting at the back of the room and the MC goes up there and starts to probe the crowd, and we realize the crowd's a little younger, maybe some of them are from out of town. Maybe it's not a good idea to drop pop culture references from the 80s in, that only Montrealers would appreciate where I live. You need to connect with your audience. And I'd watch too many comedians go up there and not even try to, like, walk that line. Like, in other words, they would do what they do. They didn't care who's in the room. I'd watched too many new comedians not understand who's my audience, who's here, and how do I give them something that's going to get them to show that I understand them, that gets them to like me and therefore to trust me to give them more of their attention.
Interesting. When you said something or a second ago that you get better by doing reps.
The more stages you do, the more rooms you're going to do, the more audiences you're going to see. And if you're relatively self aware, and let's talk about another parallel between sales, you're good at recording your sets and reviewing them and being self critical and understanding why you're not connecting with your
Mhm.
audiences, AKA your prospects. Because those people in the audience, they're your prospects. If you make them laugh, they'll go follow you on social media.
Yeah.
So the more rooms you could do, the more you could be self aware, the more you can see what works with who, the better chance you have of to build a set that has material that most people um, appreciate, that builds your trust and credibility, especially if you can make them laugh in those first 2-3 minutes
Mhm.
a number of times. And they're going to, it's going to allow you to kind of trim the fat on everything, get tighter. And if you can keep getting laughs, you get more comfortable as you get more time to go a little bit off script, you rant a certain way, to trust your own judgment. And you're going to fail at that too once you start doing that.
People who have not sold before kind of have this idea that salespeople will do anything and be anything to get the deal done, right? And professional salespeople know that you kind of have to modulate to play to the audience, but you're
Yeah.
not supposed to be going around compromising yourself, right? It's on a path to success.
Well, look, it's also interesting, and like I don't want to like only talk about comedy here. We have sales to talk about.
We absolutely deals
We
must be
do. We do.
closed,
Yeah,
right? For
exactly.
sure.
People need to eat. God damn it, especially with the rising food prices.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
No one's eating jokes.
No, but I was just listening to a podcast with some comedians, and they were talking about how like they don't do morning radio anymore when they're in a certain city. They used to have to go on like the morning show at 6
Mhm.
a.m., promote the show, and like then they've realized no one's coming to our show because we're on the radio at 6 a.m. a time we don't want to be up at because
Yeah.
comedians typically don't like waking up at that hour. So that's why that's a major reason why and then they were also told you can't say certain things on the air.
Mm.
But comedians started to do podcasts. And again, I was just listening to a podcast. It's a podcast I like. It's for people who don't mind some offensiveness. It's called We Might Be Drunk. And I get a lot of sales lessons from the way these guys talk about the process of comedy. And
Mhm.
they basically said that they all got on podcasts because they had the freedom to say what they want, to be who they wanted, which would attract a certain audience. And they didn't have to wake up at a certain hour to not be themselves on a station where no one was listening to them anyway.
Yeah.
And so they literally don't do morning radios when they're touring anymore.
I think there's a sales lesson there, right? Because, not every meeting is worth going to. So if you know that you're not the commodity option, let's say you're the premium option and someone has given you the signs of like, well, bring us your best pricing and let's talk about it, right? Like if you have other people who aren't giving you that kind of pressure and showing you how they want it to be sold, those meetings have more value than the one where you're gonna like have to just kind of, you know, probably have a very bad outcome.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%, but in all fairness, there was another reason why we brought up the whole where I brought up the whole ditching morning radio, and I kind of forget what that is. So maybe we should segue
Yeah, let's segue. I'm
to
down.
another question. But I
Yeah.
guess in short, comedians. Oh, this is the last part. This is it. You were asking about pandering to an audience or catering to audiences. But at
Yes.
a certain point, those comedians that have built those followings with their podcasts and by continuous touring, then at some point they have a big enough name where they're able to like, hey, I'm performing at this theater in your town. Come check it out. And they can fill up the theater. And more
Mhm.
comedians than ever are doing that because they're being authentic. They're catering to a core audience. They're not worrying about the people. Like if you worry about everyone, you're not going to sell to anybody.
Agreed.
But in sales, like if we find our niche, we can define well. Our target is directors of HR at manufacturing companies between 75 and 125 million who are on the West Coast. Now we're talking. Now we know who we're targeting, we're going after, and these comedians have done the same thing. And
Mhm.
just you know what? We don't need the whole world following us or liking us. We're going to make this group of people laugh, and we're going to make comfortable living. So
Interesting.
I tied that bow.
So, okay, not probably the segue that we're both planning on, but I'm curious, how important is it for a sales rep, a seller, to establish some personal brand, create some content, do something so that way they can be seen as something who's not just there to like close them and try to like, that.
In today's world or in the future?
I mean, if you think it's different, I would love to know why.
I think personal branding comes a lot. You said personal branding, right?
Yeah, like, I mean, putting out content, doing something, like, this is content, right? My book is content.
Let's bring it back to comedy. Know your audience.
Yeah.
Look, I started doing comedy writing for revenue teams targeting the technology space, SaaS. A lot of those people are younger. They've grown up on social media. They're on LinkedIn a lot. They're consuming content they want to learn. Great. There's an audience there.
Mhm.
But guess what? If you start to pivot to other industries, I mean, if your prospects aren't on, let's say, LinkedIn, which is where I build my personal brand,
Mhm.
if they're not there, why am I spending my time creating content there? Why am I spending
Agreed.
time on there? So, so that's today. So let's say
Mhm.
you're targeting executives, I don't know, at chemical manufacturing companies. They're probably not like the vast majority of them. I'm guessing the sales leaders of those companies are not hanging out on LinkedIn. They're kind of out there doing business because
Mhm.
their customers aren't on LinkedIn.
Yep.
So create content. I don't know, probably not. Um, Again, if your customers are hanging out somewhere, you want their attention, you want to educate them, be where your customers are. Doesn't matter if they're on LinkedIn or not, just be where they are. If they're at trade shows, go there.
That's a good
Um,
point.
and the
Yeah.
content is you. The content and expertise is you shaking hands, building rapport, building relationships, educating in the classic old fashioned way. But SaaS is full of younger people who work from home and have grown up on devices. Pardon me for generalizing.
Yeah.
But that seems to be the case where people are more comfortable sending emails than picking up the phone and dialing or attending a trade show and
Mhm.
networking. I'm seeing, again, I'm middle aged now. So it's like I see kind of the younger generation salespeople sticking to themselves, their colleagues. I'm like, you're at an event with all your prospects. Why aren't you going up to a random stranger, sticking out your hand and saying, hey, I'm Alex or I'm Pat. I'm with so and so. What's your deal? And that's maybe not the best intro or icebreaker, but um,
It's
it,
better than being in a reactive state, right? If you're in a performance role.
that's it. And so, look, if your customers are on LinkedIn, your prospects, the people you want to connect with are on LinkedIn, knock yourself out. Build content, build a personal brand, whoever you see fit.
Mhm.
But if they're not, I don't see any value in it unless you're looking to be to change industries. But even in those industries where today your buyers aren't, that's going to change. Like
Agreed.
the people who are in their early 20s today, one day they're going to be running that chemical manufacturing company and they've grown up with the internet.
Mhm.
So there is no real right answer. I'm just talking about like, depending on who you sell to, today might not be the time. Do you want to invest all your energy in creating content, or you might want to get a jump on it so that down the road you are the subject matter expert and you nurtured an audience over the years. So to answer your question, I don't goddamn know.
I re I respect that. So, okay, talking about comedy specifically, right? I was talking with someone the other day, and they don't want to be funny in the role, okay? But the other people, especially the leaders on this team, are that kind of what I personality type. If you're familiar with this, they like to be the center of attention. They tell great stories, all this other stuff. And so
Sure.
the advice that she is getting from her leadership constantly is you need to be more funny, which I find to be just kind of like bad leadership, right? Because they're not even thinking about the differences in personality and the differences of like how you want to communicate. Should someone try to be funny if they feel like it's like not part of their lane? Like if they can't do it from a place of being authentic and like being able to own it.
Don't try and shoehorn anything, right? So if you're not an extrovert who likes cracking jokes, I'm not going to tell you to.
Mhm.
Even though when I started comedy writing for revenue teams, the goal was to like arm more sales professionals with hyper relevant humor that would impress powerful points upon prospects and then get them going, oh, that's funny because that's true. That's wow, I never that's the way you phrase that. I'm going to remember that point, and then next time you call me, I'm going to remember that you said that. And so my goal was like, I don't know, 20% of the reps can adopt just one good, like repeatable joke,
Mhm.
one liner, icebreaker, humor, whatever you want to call it, that it would have a more, that would have an impact on the collective sales team's efforts. But like you said, there are some people who are the life of the party. The person that everyone listens to and that's super quick in the moment. And I don't teach that. That's not something you can teach. Let's kind of unpack things. To put together a really good, short, quick icebreaker that highlights a powerful challenge that your prospect is struggling with, you can't write that without having deep cut subject matter expertise about how this problem affects them, the
Mhm.
buyer, your target persona, from achieving the objective that they're working towards. So, problems, as we like to say, they're roadblocks, right?
Mhm.
And then roadblocks, if you can't cross the road, well, what's the impact to that? Well, I won't get my daughter to her dance lesson, and then she won't be able to dance. The other friends will be upset at her. The teacher will be upset. Like, what are these impacts of not solving problems?
Yeah.
And by going through the process of crafting some humor, my goal is to enable sellers to help them better understand the so what, who cares of a particular product or solution. Um, and if they can master that so what, who cares, they're going to be a lot more confident when talking to prospects. And if they're more confident, they're going to be a little bit more comfortable being themselves. And maybe being themselves um, sort of harvests their own sense of humor into things rather than
Mm.
something scripted or trying to be funny. Let the funny come to them because they're comfortable and confident and have the situation under control. And even that takes a little practice and a little work and reps.
Mhm.
So I think that when I do a workshop and we write a great joke that makes a really powerful business point to a particular persona, I think there's 20% of the people in the room who are like, that's funny. I'm going to work that into every email, LinkedIn connection request, demo, cold call, hook for my post. I'm using that over and over and over. And then there's like some people who like, I would never say that or use that, and
Mhm.
that's cool. That's cool. As long as they kind of saw what was going on with the process and how we got to that end result of what the joke is. And they could sort of see everything underneath the waterline that's in that iceberg because what's above the waterline is the joke, the tip of the iceberg. Everything underneath that is really what I want them to grasp.
Mhm.
And again, that includes like what's the pain that they're experiencing? Why is it true? Why is it painful for them? Master all that stuff, and then the natural you will be confident and eventually know how to communicate and connect with people better.
I love that. That's well. I like how you pointed all that out because I think sometimes you, especially in certain situations, to where the training is much more like just follow this example of this producer and stuff, right? And I've been in these spots to where there was no real like coaching or training. It's just kind of follow someone, and not being that super extroverted person, I would feel like a gap, and then I would feel like I would need to try to be more like this person as opposed to being comfortable being myself. Um, a thing that you said before we turned on the recording that I think will be helpful here is you were talking about how jokes are more pretty formulaic, right? When you're at least writing them down. Can you talk a little bit more about how do you build a formula? Like,
The more comedy you watch, the more you're gonna see how it's all formulaic, especially if you go check out like Rodney Dangerfield is like the perfect guy to go watch his one-liner. Like go look at his one-liners on paper and deconstruct them. He uses language to mislead people with context or yeah, meaning of words,
mhm,
to misdirect us. So, and a classic like one-liner is a superlative. You're comparing two very different things, and the connecting tissue is a phrase or word or adjective that connects the two. So I noticed that I wanted to make people laugh on my cold calls. I wanted to be hyper relevant, and I wanted to do it all within 5 to 10 seconds to get a reaction, so they give me another 30 seconds.
mhm.
So I would call up chief revenue officers at software companies, and I would say, "Hey, John, this is Jon Selig, and if we weren't connecting on LinkedIn, this call would be colder than the relationship between sales and marketing.
Mhm.
I'm just destroying. I'm just getting the laughs I want right now. That's okay." And sometimes if I was calling up a head of sales development, um, I would say, "Hey, this call is colder than an SDR's feet their first day dialing." All right, now we're
Yeah.
talking. So why are you laughing?
Yeah.
Why did that make you laugh?
I mean, the second one is funnier to me because it's closer to my land of experience. You know, like while the first joke is relevant, right? And the second one is just closer to me, so it's easier for me to latch on to, right?
Okay, so there's two lessons here. Number one is that the closer you are, like you hone in on your audience and you figure out what is the specific problem you can solve for them, and how does it translate to them not reaching their objective, it's
Hmm.
going to get a bigger reaction, whether you're using a joke or not. So
Okay.
I highlighted the challenge of call reluctance through that second joke.
Hmm.
The first joke, there's silos between sales and marketing, and chief revenue officers are beating their heads against the wall trying to figure out how do I get these two working together a little bit better.
Yeah.
So that's why the first one connects, but the second one in your case, you're like, I recognize that there's call reluctance. They don't want to pick up the phone. Well, if it makes you laugh and you were managing a team of 10 SDRs, and I'd say, why is it funny? Odds are you because my reps don't want to pick up the phone,
Mm. So you
or
would
my
follow up with like kind of hitting him with the challenging question of like, okay, so why is that so funny?
literally, why'd you laugh?
There's the nugget right there. Like not just like having the gumption or the grit to like say a joke that you're not sure is going to land. Like that seems like a gutsy moment of like, ah, why are you laughing? Right? Because like you said it to get the laugh and then checking the assumption on why they're laughing, that's very interesting. Not something I would have thought about.
So to segue back to your original question, so a superlative is where you're comparing two very disparate concepts.
Hmm.
So my call is unsolicited. My outreach, it's unsolicited. It's out of the blue.
Yeah.
And so it's cold. And cold is this word that's used in many idioms that kind of highlight human emotions. So if I'm upset at you, I'll give you the cold stare or the cold shoulder. If I'm nervous to come on your podcast, I have cold feet, or I might be in a cold sweat. There's a lot of them, is the point.
Hmm.
So by comparing your outreach, your call, your email, this call is this LinkedIn connection request is colder than blank. Let's talk about an emotional reaction to a problem that they're struggling with, which you solve, or an impact of not solving the problem. So
Interesting.
again, I'm trying to do some stuff in the medical space. So this call is colder than the shoulder doctors give to boring sales reps.
Hmm.
So the point is you got to stand out because they get a lot that they're being harassed by a million sales reps. They don't have a lot of time in their day. And if you're not quick and funny and stand out a little bit, they're going to give you none of their time. So the point is
Absolutely.
the joke is a formula, and you can make jokes about, I was working with kind of a company that does tools for sysadmins in tech,
Tools
sort
for
of like
what?
sysadmins, system administrators.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so it was like password management, stuff like that.
Hmm.
So they said the only thing harder than managing your passwords is the table that you'll bang your head against when you fail at managing it properly. I forget the joke, but like the word harder has a couple of connotations, and it's just the connecting tissue. You're comparing two very different things, and that's a formula for a joke.
How important is vocabulary, right? Because you're kind of hitting on this thing of like you want to try to use words that have multiple connections so that way you're kind of creating like a heightened sense of maybe curiosity or presentness in the moment. How much of that is tied to like the language that they want because one of my coaches said you always want to use insider language but not jargon, right? Is it the same thing?
It's a good point. I like that. Um, Look, at the end of the day, my business is called comedy writing for revenue teams. It's not stand-up comedy for revenue teams. It's like, how do
That's
you
fair.
write meaningful messaging that connects with your prospects? And to do that, yes, you need to know that insider language,
Hmm.
the hyper specifics of the metrics, the KPIs they're trying to hit. You're trying to show them you know them is the expression,
Yep.
um, through humor. But at the same time, you can't. It doesn't matter how good your grasp of language is if you don't have a good grasp of their challenges and how those challenges are preventing them from getting to where they want to go. The language is immaterial. So you kind of need both, I would say.
That makes sense. It's so funny to me because the lesson that I'm hearing from you is like go spend time with your clients and customers and hear it directly from them, right? Which is,
Oh yeah.
something, I was working on a project and I was like, great, I'm gonna go talk to your best clients and like, why? You're here to help us sell. I mean, we're looking for more people like these, I think, right? So why wouldn't we go hear it from them? Well, you can just hear it from us. We're the leadership. It's like, no, no, I got to go talk to these people specifically.
I went to a trade show recently for the trade show industry.
Oh, the trade show of trade shows. How meta is that?
Yeah, it's like Kramer wrote a coffee table book about coffee tables. The same idea, and I wanted to write some jokes to show the trade show people I really get them,
Hmm.
and I interviewed them. I just interviewed them, and yes, I took their words and phrases because that's their language, and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff ended up in the jokes. And one of them said, "Oh, we all struggle to think outside the box," and I wrote this joke that says, "That makes sense. There's not that much room in that 10 by 10."
I love that one. That one's
Yeah,
really good.
and you're not even a
Okay,
trade show guy, and you got it.
and I'm not even a trade show guy at all. I believe me, nothing saps my battery more. Like you and I met at SaaStr, and I was having this very weird moment because like I'd been out of the trade show thing and event thing for a while. We're coming out of pandemic and everything, and it just felt like most of the people that are supposed to be putting on the show, right? Like the people in the booths and everything. It felt like there was like a noticeable gap between like shows and events that I've done in the past versus like the current level of quality of people that are like running booths and running events and stuff like that. It seemed to be a little bit less. And like I was just kind of attributing it to like COVID and people not being around each other as much and stuff like that. Do you see a similar kind of like decline as far as like the EQ side of selling, right? Reading between the lines, being able to take soft nose, like diving deeper than just being like brass tacks.
Well, yeah, but SaaS is not the place to question why that's the case too much, if I'm making sense. Because everything you're saying is, look, it's a career full of younger sales professionals
Hmm.
who, again, we talked about this generational gap where some people, like it or not, have grown up on the internet on their phones. Uh, Being extroverted and approachable is maybe declining a little bit. But also, I mean, venture funded tech companies, what we're seeing is they don't want to invest a lot in training because that costs money and we need to do things on a certain timeline.
Yeah.
And we just want them to, we're going to throw them in the deep end with cinder blocks around their ankles and hope they swim.
Yeah.
And I'm just, to answer your question, I saw it at SaaStr that I'd go up to a booth of a company whose name I never heard of and couldn't pronounce. And I would say, "Hey, I'm just curious, what business problem or technical problem do you solve for who?" And they would just go, "Check it. We're an AI-driven engagement platform. We 10x scale. Do you want to? Can I show you a demo?" And I'd be like, "You didn't answer any of my questions." And they're like,
Yes.
"What do you mean?" I said, "I just said, what problem, business or technical, do you solve for who? You gave me a pitch and offered me a demo,
Yeah.
and you're not listening to me. And therefore, you guys, your company really needs to rethink why they're spending all this money on the booth, the exhibit, the swag you're giving away, sending all you guys here. What's happening here? Why are you guys spending all this money if you're not going to like even listen to people who are interested in
Yeah.
what problem you solve and why you're here?" So, it's shameless self-promotion time, John.
Of course.
Um,
Yeah. That's why we're
yeah,
here.
one of the uses of jokes are great trade show engagement. So if I come up
Okay.
to you, like, so I wrote those jokes to demonstrate those jokes for the trade show
Hmm.
to demonstrate exactly how humor can be used to engage prospects. So if you come up to my booth and I say, "Hey, do you want to hear a joke about trade shows?" You'd be like, "I'm a trade show professional. I'm at this trade show about trade shows. What do you got?" And I told you that joke that said that, make trade shows planners struggle to think outside the box. That makes sense. There's not much room in that 10 by 10. They're gonna get it, and and it's making a point to them. And even if they don't laugh and they go, "Well, that's interesting. We always buy the 30 by 20." Well, okay, well, like, so, but is that working for you? Are you guys still getting the conversations
Yeah.
you want? Either way, it segues to a conversation, whether they laugh or whether they don't laugh. So I look at humor as a great way to demonstrate your subject matter expertise, break the ice, start a conversation that heads in the meaningful direction versus making a quick joke about, boy, it's hot in this trade show hall, right? Um, well, yeah, haha, it is. Well, what's up?
Yeah.
You still got to segue to the real business conversation. So, look, I think some industries have older sellers who have been doing it for a long time. They come from a different generation. I don't think manning the trade show booth or staffing the trade show booth, maybe a better term today, um, staffing that trade show booth is as much of a challenge because they've been around the block. Whereas SaaS, it's everyone's young in their careers.
It's a good
So
point.
I
Really good
don't always
point.
think it's, but at the same time, like I said, they're spending money on this stuff.
Yeah.
So why are they sticking with things that are just getting them scan badges versus meeting conversations and book meetings?
Yeah. Interesting. So you kind of ran into one of the questions that I was going to ask for you. And the question I was going to ask is like, is it important that you get the laugh if you're trying to load comedy? But based upon what you just said, it kind of sounds like no, but a good joke, even if it doesn't get a laugh, is going to segue into at least something of tangible interest that starts a conversation.
I've taught you well. Yes. That's it. I don't, we're not, listen, we're not comedians. Salespeople are not comedians. Their
Mhm.
job is to not get 3 laughs a minute. Their job is to spark a conversation, uh, provoke it, if you will, hopefully touch on some pain, get an emotional reaction like comedians do,
Yeah.
but segue to that business conversation and drive them towards a next step, whether it's a book meeting, whether it's a demo, whatever it is. So I don't care if they get the laugh or not. I care if they get the meeting.
Good point. Right. So next question, kind of working my way down the path of questions that I've been storing up for you. Is it harder to be funny over email than it is over a DM versus a call?
Yeah, but the more you do each, the more you realize like what you need to avoid.
Okay, so the formulas are kind of like platform and kind of like conversationally method dependent, right? So you'd build the joke differently for a cold call versus a DM versus a cold email.
So for example, like when I go to trade shows
Hmm.
and I'm walking a floor, I'm introducing myself to an exhibiting company. I hit them up with like, "Hey guys, I just want to be clear. Like, hey John, look, just want to be clear. I'm not your prospect. So if at some point during this conversation, one drives up with 17 dump trucks full of money for all your inventory, you can violently push me away and I will not hold it against you."
Hmm.
And I always get laughs with that. And then I have more time and more permission. That doesn't come across in an email.
Yeah, agreed.
So, but if you say this email is colder than an SDR's feet their first day dialing, you just read that. It says something. It's kind of funny. Will it get a
Mm.
ha ha ha? Debatable, right? I'm not
Yeah.
claiming it will. No one's trying to write a Netflix special here, but it's different. It's different. It's cute, and it segues to a conversation. So yes, I think that every medium in which you're using to deliver humor, every channel
Hmm.
is going to be different, and some will work in that channel and some will not. Like I don't recommend you be sarcastic in your written communications.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
mean,
how do
well,
we?
let me qualify that though.
Please, yeah,
Look, emojis are kind of a newer thing, relatively speaking. So if you use emojis in a certain way, maybe you can get the joke across the goal
you
line
can
if it's
control the tone a
sarcastic.
little bit through emoji.
But some people can't process sarcasm even through verbal tones, let alone through written
Hmm.
ones. So you might just come off looking like a jerk if you say something sarcastic in a cold email.
That's I think that's a nugget for people who are listening to this because like sarcasm like is one of my kind of bigger humor lanes, and it's super easy for me to kind of want to move in that direction, but I also know that I can't use it in the written word because I can't control the tonality with which they ingest it, right? Whereas you can in a verbal conversation. Um, Next question.
Uh,
Okay, how does John you
um,
go about working on your craft? Like what is the little stuff that you do to kind of keep moving forward, keep improving, keep polishing this craft of yours?
I refuse to take medication for ADHD. So I would recommend anybody out there who might be struggling with that, just don't get on any kind of meds. And boy, those ideas and funny will come to you. Well, it's kind of true. Like I think if you want to write if you want to do stand up or you want to write humor, you need to see the absurdity in things. And I kind of view it as like the seeing eye puzzle. Remember those sorry, not the seeing eye puzzle. That's
The
a
third eye puzzle?
yeah, the magic eye.
Magic eye, that's what it was called. I could never see those, and it was always like, "Well, that's because you wear glasses, John," and everyone always had a different reason about why I wasn't ever
That's
able
not
to
the
see
reason.
it.
So what's interesting about the magic eye puzzle is at first I can never see it either. And then one day it just happened and I sort of figured out the little trick
Mhm.
and boom, I was seeing all those boats and ducks and things popping out of photos. And I think with joke writing, it's the similar thing. Like there's this whole concept in joke writing of misdirects,
Mhm.
or reversals, and where you build up one thing and then it sort of flips around and you realize that they realize you were talking about something completely different. You were misrepresenting what you were saying in the setup in order to get that. I'm not giving a good example right now, but but you learn how to see those eventually. You learn how to process the situation and find where the funny is, and how you might want to present it to an audience. Look, the thing about stand up comedy is you'll never figure it out. It's You can kill with a group of jokes in one room on one night, and maybe you're doing the late show, and it's a completely different crowd, do the exact same set.
Mhm.
So you're on top of the world 1 minute, and the next minute you're at the lowest of the low, like you're at the bottom of things. So people can sort of how do I work on my craft? I mean, I'm always trying to capture ideas in the moment when I hear them,
Mhm.
get them down on paper. And when I say paper, I really mean like a notes doc or something like that on my phone.
Yeah.
And then just playing with it, trying to shuffle the words around a little bit, trying to pl- condense, edit, talk it out is a good one. Um, vet it, run it by people, and it's healthy to do with our sales messaging, of course, too. It's like, hey, if
Absolutely.
I was sending you with this email, would you reply to this? I was wondering if colleagues do that with each other. Come to think of it, would you read this on your phone? Would you read this at your desk? So how do I work on my craft? I mean, I'm not doing too much stand up these days, but I'm still writing jokes. I do it for my clients. I do it
Mhm.
for my posts. And I've reached a certain I don't do it every day because I got a million other things to do, but I still know how to put together a joke when I need to. Um, for myself anyway. For my clients, I do it all the time. But
Mhm.
sometimes I forget about myself. And the moments come where you just see something online that strikes you and you make it a point to sit down and massage that into two sentences that can make offer something to the audience that's of relevance and then delight them with a punchline that they didn't see coming and that makes a powerful point.
That's interesting. If someone is wanting to develop some humor, right, and try to figure out how to weave it into whatever it is they're doing, where would you tell them to start?
If they want to figure out how to work it in, I would always start with using it in cold outreach because you sort of have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
If the joke is good and your coworkers find it funny and it's tasteful, let's always remember tasteful.
Tasteful. Yeah.
And it checks off certain boxes, like it's not sarcastic, it makes a powerful point. Run it by your coworkers. If it's good, whittle it down. Try and whittle it down, get out every syllable, every word that doesn't add anything, get it out of there.
Mhm.
And then see if it could fit into an old school 140 character tweet, I should say, X, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I'm an old man at this point. I still call it Twitter, damn it.
Same.
Um, yeah, exactly. Um, and I would try and do it in a couple LinkedIn connection requests. I think that's a really good place to start with humor because use it in those notes. Although if you're not a paid LinkedIn member, they whittled those
Yeah.
down, which is just insane.
Yeah. They're making it very hard to use that platform, but that's a
Yeah,
whole other conversation.
I mean Microsoft owns it, right? So there you
Yeah.
go. That's par for the course. I hope the Microsoft people don't sue me over this. So with that said, I've said too much, and
For salespeople, if they're new into sales, where would you point them to get their feet under them, get some good knowledge, get some good content, some help on the path? Where would you send someone who is brand new to sales?
oh god, I'm not certain. I'm gonna give a shout out to Mike Fiasconi.
Okay.
Mike,
I do not know him.
uh, Mike is a former DocuSign, like, quota crusher,
Okay.
and he has his own little company. I think it's called 100 Handshakes now. He is doling out sales advice on LinkedIn right now that just to me, it's so much more valuable than his cold calling dead or here's
Yeah.
how you get my 3 email sequence template. Like, he's speaking about proper B2B sales and selling. I'm not a big fan of the psychology folks. Like, you got to reverse the roles and you got to get them out of their zone of resistance. I'm like, I don't know. It's not bad stuff. It's just not what I care about in my. So check out Mike Fiasconi, Fiascone, I believe is his name. Follow him on LinkedIn. His posts are just like they're gold mines.
Nice. Thank you for that. How, in your opinion, does a salesperson know if they're in the wrong lane for them? What are the warning signs that you would tell someone to look for to indicate that it's time to make a change?
That they have a lot of self awareness. I would say is going to tell them that story. Look, if you don't feel comfortable doing this job, you're probably in the wrong lane. If you don't feel comfortable but really like it and get comfortable then. Figure out how to get comfortable. Because if you like it, that's a that's a great start. And maybe I should have started with if you don't like talking to people, you don't feel good about that, and you're not curious, and you don't want to help people solve problems and you're not proactive about it, you're probably in the wrong lane. Well, no, you are in the wrong lane.
Yeah. Interesting.
Like, you gotta wanna talk to people. You gotta whether they get in touch with you or you get in touch with them, you gotta be prepared to hop on a call, dig in, and help them solve a problem. And, you know, to me, good salespeople know how to prospect, and you have to be willing to engage people. And it's not just gonna happen over email and building your personal brand. It's gotta be the phone. It's gotta
Hmm.
be going to networking events, to trade shows, to industry events. Get up off your butt and do it. Make it happen.
I love that. I think that's probably the best place to leave it at, John. I thank you so much for coming on. If someone wants to come hang out, learn more about you and what you're doing, and see if it makes sense to have you come in and help them with some comedy bits, where do people come find you? How can they connect?
3 spots, LinkedIn, Selig is my second name, and,
Hmm.
that's my URL too, jonselig.com. The H is both silent and invisible, i.e., no H in John, guys. Uh, that's where you and I differ. We're an H apart.
An H
Um,
apart. Yep.
yep. So my website, jonselig.com. Find me on LinkedIn. Those are the best spots.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Cheers.
Cheers.